Derek Spallone, glad to be alongside Chicago's very own Isiah Thomas. Isiah, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing terrific, thank you. So, jump right into it, Isiah. You grew up on the west side of Chicago. How did that mold you into the person you are today?
The values and the lessons learned growing up on the west side of Chicago, the family that I grew up in, it was all about education. That was the thing that was preached the most in our household. That was the word around the community. At that time, it was all about striving to get better through education, not necessarily through athletics.
And you're very passionate about giving back to the community. You founded the Mary's Court Foundation, named after your mother, to help improve the lives of disadvantaged women and families. How have you been able to continue to use basketball as a tool to show the youth that anything is possible?
Well, when you have an opportunity to be in the spotlight, as I've been over a long period of time, you try to use that platform to shine a light on others. Then you have to help support others and give them a pathway to success and give them a pathway out of their tough circumstances. So what I've always tried to do with the platform of sport or celebrity is to try to help others and try to shine light on others.
So did you kind of have that as well when you were growing up? Someone to kind of mentor you to get you?
Just again, it was the neighborhood, my family, my brothers. I played for great coaches. So all my coaches went to the Hall of Fame. My high school coach, Gene Pingatore, is in the Hall of Fame. My college coach, Bob Knight, is in the Hall of Fame. My pro coach, Chuck Daly, made it to the Hall of Fame. And I made it to the Hall of Fame. So that says that I was lucky enough to have great coaching, great parenting, and just, a great community that kind of helped me.
So many people refer to Chicago as the murder capital of the country. What do you believe is the solution to the violence?
Well, we have to address the issues of poverty. Capitalism says that there's always going to be poverty. However, when you put drugs and weapons on top of poverty, then you have no chance. Historically, we've shown that you can educate in poverty. You can have good family, good values in poverty. However, what makes it almost impossible is when you put drugs and weapons on top of that. So if we can find a way to eradicate or eliminate drugs and weapons out of impoverished areas, then I think we've come a long way.
That's a great point. And now onto the basketball, your start of your career. When did you first discover your love for the game?
I always loved the game. It was a game that my family and I, my brothers and I, we always played. And, we were like most kids. We were seasonal. When it was football season, we played football, basketball. We played basketball, baseball. But, once I got to high school, basketball more or less took over in terms of what I wanted to play and focus on. I enjoyed watching the other sports, but my passion became basketball.
And you played your high school basketball at St. Joseph's under Coach Pingatore, as you stated. What have you been able to learn from him, and that kind of molded you into the player you are?
Again, the old school coaches, they were more philosophical coaches. They were value-based coaches, and they believed that their job was to build the person, and the player will come, and more or less give you the life skills to assimilate in the community, not necessarily become the best basketball player to play NBA basketball and all that. So those are the things that I learned from my coaches, how to take care of your personhood.
And then an interesting quote that I found was after a game in high school, after an interview, you asked Coach Pingatore, am I different? Am I becoming different? You have to let me know. I don't want to be different. I want to be the same. Well, there's some heartfelt questions. How did Coach Pingatore respond?
His response was basically, I'll let you know if that starts to happen or if I see changes. Because too many times when you're thrown into the spotlight, the media is covering you, you get newspaper clippings, you're on television and everything else, and there's a gradual change in all of us that occurs, and sometimes you don't recognize those changes, whether they be positively or negatively. So he being a coach in my life at that time, I wanted to make sure that if he saw any of the negative things happening, that we try to address them quickly.
And moving on to your collegiate career, you played at Indiana University under Bob Knight. What was the number one thing you took away from Bob Knight that you were able to transition into the next level?
Again, from a high school coach, my mom, and everybody else, just being prepared, and taking the time to study. If you want an A on the test, you really have to, you have to study.
Yeah.
You just don't show up and get an A on the test. And so we spent a lot of time preparing, understanding the opponent, strengths, weaknesses, how to dismantle opponents, how to dismantle team philosophy. So it's, we learned a lot of basketball from him, but it was an additional block of the building block that my mom and my high school coaches and my grade school coaches had already started. So I was lucky to just be in one school of thought, one school of philosophy in terms of play and personhood.
And it must have been awesome because you won a national championship there as well, so I'm sure the attention buzzed up a little bit more in Indiana at least. So yeah. And then fellow Chicagoan and future teammate Mark Aguirre goes #1 in the NBA draft. You go #2, 1981 NBA draft. Take us through draft night and your thoughts when you heard your name called by the commissioner.
Well, it was very surreal in terms of your life drastically changed, and it changed in an instant. You went from living below the poverty line and not being able to afford a meal, literally, and in 24 hours you can buy your family meals. Yeah. So it was definitely was a life-changing experience. That night, I remember the most. Mark and I just really making it a family moment. It was really all about our families, our moms, our dads, our brothers, our sisters. It was all night, and it was a good night.
How long did it kind of take you though to adjust to knowing one day you're a college athlete, then all of a sudden you're a professional basketball player?
It didn't take me long to adjust to that because I had good friends. Magic was very influential at that time to me. George Gervin, Dr. J. So there was a brotherhood that I more or less went into, and they took time with Mark and I over the summer to basically tell us what the NBA was going to be about and what we were going into.
That's fantastic then. And Isiah, you helped lead the Pistons to 2 championships back-to-back during an era when the powerhouses were the Celtics and the Lakers, and you also had the emergence of the Bulls and the Trailblazers. But what did it mean to you to bring those multiple championships back to a city like Detroit that was hungering for something positive?
That was great because that was, as you said, it was a city that was hungry for something positive, and we were able to provide that light, provide that positivity to, families, people who were struggling, people who were having a very difficult time in their lives, and you were able to bring some sunshine and a ray of hope that things can and will get better. So that was a dual combination of winning on the court and also winning off the court.
And Isiah, despite your talent, many players conspired to keep you off of the dream team. How did you overcome that obstacle?
You just move on. You do the best you can with what you have, and your job is not to evaluate yourself. You are evaluated by others in this profession. So my job was to present my body of work, do it as well as I can, and then someone else decides if they like it or not. So
you did fantastic. 12-time All-Star, 2-time World Champion, and a Hall of Famer. You were also the all-time leading scorer in Pistons franchise history. When you look back at your journey, what stands out the most to you about those accolades?
The 2 championships, winning back-to-back championships in the era that we won championships in, because the teams were so stacked, the players were so good, and our journey to a championship, I don't know if there's ever been a tougher journey to a championship than the one we had to take through those great players and great teams.
Well, after your playing career, you still managed to stay in the game, most notably as a coach. What was the biggest challenge you faced, though, having to adjust from playing the game to coaching the game?
From a coaching standpoint, you realize quickly it's, if you have great players, you have a great coach. If you have good players, you have a good coach. And the players do, if you really have, it's a player's game. And while you were playing, you understood it was a player's game. But when you start coaching, you know it's a player's game.
So you had a better understanding a little bit than when you...
because it's, as Coach Knight said one time, he said, just imagine that the guy that you're coaching is running up and down the court with his paycheck in your mouth. Yeah. And it depends on whether that guy makes the shot or misses the shot if you're a good or a bad coach.
Oh, that's a perfect example. And just a couple more questions for you. What was your reaction to the comments made by Los Angeles Clippers owner Donald Sterling in regards to African Americans and in particular Magic Johnson?
I think that was and it has been a very turbulent time for the NBA and society in general. However, what it's done is open the door for a broader conversation on race relations in this country. The language that we use, the racialization of how we treat each other. I think it's opened the door for us to have these type of conversations that were dormant for so long. And the history of this country with racism, it impels you to basically act when you have these type of words being talked about from an owner of a team who has power and who also governs and represents a sport that we try to take across globally, where we transport our culture, we transport our thoughts, we transport who we are. And sports is the place where you supposedly have a level playing field. So anytime this conversation is within the boundaries of sport, it has to be rooted out quickly. And the NBA and the players have done a good job in doing that.
My final question for you, Isiah. Many great basketball players have came out of Chicago, guys like Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose, among many others. But what's your reaction when people tell you, Isiah, you're the greatest basketball player to come out of Chicago?
I take it as a huge compliment. I don't necessarily embrace it because, as you said, there's been so many great ones that have come out of the city. So what I just try to do is be happy to stand on the stage with everyone. But to single me out as the best, I don't necessarily accept it, but I'm honored that people would say that. The thing that I do embrace, though, is that you look at the players that have come out of Chicago, particularly the ones in my era that I grew up with. All of us went on to win championships in the NBA.
That's true.
Myself, Mark Aguirre, Eddie Johnson, Doc Rivers recently just joined the club. You had Darrell Walker, Craig Hodges, Rod Higgins. I mean, all of us, won championships. And then you go to the next generation and you look at the Antoine Walkers, the Dwayne Wades, the people who have continued to come and rise out of Chicago who wear the championship ring. So I don't know if in the last 20 years there's been a team that's won a championship that hasn't had someone from Chicago on it or some type of Chicago connection. We even claim Tony Parker because his dad's from Chicago.
Oh, wow. Well, Derek Spallone, Isiah Thomas, I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you.